Talk to your cardiologist today and visit hcmrealtalk.com for more information.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb.
What's better than one win? 3 wins. With Straight Savings, you keep your own phone, get one line for only $25 a month with real unlimited data, and get rewarded with a $200 phone credit after 12 months. It's a win-win-win. Head to Walmart or visit straighttalk.com today. Switch to Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Straight Savings Plan enrollment requires compatible unlocked device and new line of service. Bonus device credit requires 12 months of active service. Offer ends if eligibility requirements are no longer met. Taxes and fees apply. For network management practices, see Straight Talk's terms and conditions.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date? With a COVID shot this season, designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have some leftover delays on northbound Highway 89 in Davis County, going from about Antelope Drive up to the I-84 junction in South Weber. This is packed in and slow. You want to consider avoiding it and using I-15 to go northbound between Davis and Weber counties. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead for intermittent ramp closures on I-80 and I-215 near the mouth of Parley's Canyon this Saturday night while crews install new lane striping. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny with a high of 91 today. A few more clouds move in over the weekend with a chance of rain. Highs will stay in the mid-90s. Right now it's sunny and 88 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Lots of presidential headlines today. Of course, former President Donald Trump began the day in New York at an appeals hearing for one of his court cases and then flew to North Carolina. Why? Because it's North Carolina. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have full weekend plans ahead of their big debate coming up next Tuesday. But we want to get onto the campaign trail, underneath the headlines, look at what's actually happening, what strategies, what are the crucial pieces that are happening in places like North Carolina. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
As always, we want to get underneath it and think again about what we think we know. And someone who has been barnstorming on the campaign trail, Robert Sherman, national correspondent for News Nation, one of our favorites here on the show. And Robert, we're glad you're not in a war zone, but you're in a different kind of war zone today. You're in North Carolina, and things are definitely heating up.
Yeah, difference, between now we're fighting a war fought with political arrows, so to speak, here. And that continues on once again today, as the campaign trail shifts back to North Carolina, with the former president set to speak at the Fraternal Order of Police here in Charlotte in just a little bit here. But I think the big thing, Boyd, is that, at the end of the day, presidential elections, they come down to the math of it. How do you get to 270 electoral votes? And if you're Donald Trump, the shortest pathway in order to get there is flip Georgia, flip Pennsylvania. That gets you to 270. But not so fast, because the curveball that is in there is North Carolina, a state that has been very good to Republicans since 1980. They've won every election here, with the exception of 2008. And if things don't go the former president's way here, well, now all of a sudden the math looks very different in order how you get to 270. And the road becomes a bit more treacherous here. And you look at what's going on in North Carolina right now, there's a couple of things. One, it is a very, very tight race. Despite the fact that the former president has won the last two elections, it is not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination, and a big turn ever since you saw Kamala Harris on the ticket. The other thing that is an element here are down-the-ballot races, particularly the gubernatorial race here. Josh Stein is the Democrat running, who's the attorney general here, and Mark Robinson is the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. He's the Republican candidate. That is a very different race in which the Democrat, Josh Stein, has a huge lead. We're talking about 8-9 percentage points, depending on which poll you look at here. And the fear is that Robinson could potentially bring the former president down in this state. You talk about riding coattails to the finish line in down ballot races. Well, this one might be a bit more of an anchor if the landscape of that gubernatorial race doesn't change.
Oh, that is fascinating because we often talk about that momentum from the top of the ticket to carrying all the way down, and now you have one where it might be a reverse situation in terms of how that might benefit Vice President Harris. It's also interesting too as you describe that, Robert, in terms of kind of an alternate path in terms of the math for Vice President Harris, and that is if she were to flip North Carolina, she could sort of do that North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada swing and give her a couple of different ways to get to 270.
Absolutely. And, the calculators are twiddling away, as you say all of this here, because, at the end of the day, the most important state is Pennsylvania,
yes,
solely for the fact that it has 19 electoral votes. And, depending on who you ask, it's probably going to decide the election here. But, what I would say is that, you talk about that path of least resistance for the former president, not out of the question at all. Pennsylvania is very within reach for the former president. Same with Georgia, same with North Carolina. But if one of those doesn't go his way, well, then all of a sudden Michigan, which is a different electorate, or Wisconsin, which is a different electorate, now becomes all the more critical. Nevada, a state that he hasn't carried in the last two election cycles, now all of a sudden that one becomes more important here. This is the pathway that the Trump campaign, without question, wants to hammer. And the best evidence I can give you of that is the ad spending that is going on here. You compare Pennsylvania and Georgia to Michigan and Arizona. It's night and day. Pennsylvania, Georgia, that's where the money's really going. But North Carolina, there's a reason this is his fourth visit here since Joe Biden left the race and Kamala Harris took over on the ticket. Wow. 2 months ago, this looked close to locked up, Boyd, and now all of a sudden it is a very different ball game.
Yeah, no question about that. Give us a little behind the scenes. You're at the stage now where you've been to enough of the rallies, really across the board. You could probably give the Kamala Harris speech. You could probably give the former President Trump speech. What is it in the crowds that you're seeing that might give us something a little under the headline in terms of what are people actually grasping onto? What seems to be resonating in a place like North Carolina?
That's such a good question, Boyd, because I think so much of, what gets talked about now is that there's a focus on the quote unquote noise of the political cycle, the jokes that are cracked at the podium, or the jabs that are taken, that garners so much of the attention. You just talk to people state to state. Their question is, how do I pay my gas bill this month? There's one woman who we spoke to in Pennsylvania who I thought said it so well, which was, I make more money than I've ever made before, and my dollar is going less far than it's ever gone before. Those are the things that we hear people talking about. We hear people talking about the border. People are concerned about foreign policy, but most of all, people are concerned about the economy, about inflation, and they want answers to all of this. And to this point, there haven't been a ton of answers that, really firm answers that have been given to exactly how the price of eggs is going to be dropped down. Granted, the former president has focused on oil prices and trying to drive down logistics costs and things of that nature. But people still have a lot of questions on that, and they do want some answers.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And just in our last minute or so here, Robert, one of the things that I think has been a challenge, first for President Biden and now for Kamala Harris, and that is kind of this thing that is incongruent, that they're talking about some of their successes or things are going good in the economy, but it's not in alignment with what people are experiencing, as you just described the voter from Pennsylvania, of saying, hey, I am making more money, but I'm buying less and I'm more stressed at the end of the month than I was before. How is the Harris campaign or how is the Trump campaign using kind of that disconnect between trying to tout some positives in the economy versus the reality of what Americans are living and talking about around the kitchen table?
Well, you've asked a very good question there because, for a lot of Americans out there, they don't buy the line that, the economy is better than it's ever been before. Not really finding that sentiment out here on the campaign trail. So for the Trump campaign, strategy is obvious. Connect the dots, between the Harris campaign and that sentiment and say that the campaign is out of touch with the concerns of everyday people. If you're the Harris campaign, it really is a needle to thread here, because on the one hand, I mean, we have not seen the vice president really throwing President Biden under the bus in any capacity, but on the other hand, still articulating those concerns that there are things in the present system that are broken. We hear Kamala Harris say it is too expensive for people on a day-to-day basis. Costs are too high. Inflation hurts. So I mean, you almost see the vice president, I'm trying to run as if she wasn't attached to the administration at all. It is very nuanced and very interesting. Does that sell at the end of the day? Does that get her across the finish line? Only time will tell, because it looks close in every single one of these states.
Fantastic perspective, as always. Live from the campaign trail in North Carolina, Robert Sherman, national correspondent for News Nation, one of our favorite guests, always gives us a little something behind the scenes and under the hood to really start thinking again about. Robert, as always, thanks so much for making time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, that's Robert Sherman, national correspondent for News Nation, and he is on the campaign trail with former President Donald Trump today in North Carolina. Fourth visit for former President Trump to North Carolina since President Biden dropped out of the race. That tells you how important the state is and how tight the race is. So there's a lot of these states that we're going to see this over and over. We're going to continue to think again about what we think we know in terms of the voters, what they're asking, what answers they're getting, and how it's going to impact their vote on the first Tuesday of November. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Finally.
September. Things are finally going to get back to normal.
We are one step closer to having a section of downtown Salt Lake City transformed.
Utah Senate Democrats say there's no need for the special session.
The air quality is hazy and unhealthy for all groups.
They say it's not true. There's no ticket quota.
Since when is there a normal anyway?
We're tracking these stories to keep you updated on key developments.
Listen each day this week to KSL News Radio.
Winter is coming, but there's still time to replace those drafty old windows before the cold comes and drives up your heating bill. Just make one call and take advantage of the Advanced Window Products Fall Special. $2,500 off on 10 windows or more, and that's $2,500 off their already low factory direct prices, because at Advanced Window Products, they're the factory. Your windows are built in their facility right here in Salt Lake City. You're buying local, and with their lifetime guarantee, you don't ever have to call some faraway state for help. Advanced Window Products is right here, proudly backing up their work. So make one call, save on your heating bill, and get a rebate from the energy companies. Advanced Window Products offers 0% financing. They can even give you amazing new windows with no money down. And don't forget, $2,500 off their factory direct prices, but you have to call now. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
It's one thing falling in love with a house, picturing yourself moving in and calling it home, and quite another navigating the world of price negotiating, mortgage lenders, and finding the budget that works best for you. An agent who's a Realtor can make understanding that world easier. Realtors have the expertise, access to proprietary data, and tools to help you get from imagining living somewhere to actually doing it. That's the kind of help we can provide, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
At the UPS Store, we understand the importance of a first impression. That's why we're here to help you put your best foot forward and be unstoppable with our printing services. With high-quality paper stock options, banners, business cards, menus, and more, we make sure your small business stands out and your message reaches the masses. After all, we're the one-stop prints that pop store. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today and get your print on.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Today, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first-time Nana moments.
Yeah, welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't-miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Everyone on the road is trying to make it to their destination safely. You can help by staying aware of the large trucks and buses around you. They take longer to stop, have large blind spots, and make wide turns that require caution from other drivers. It takes all of us working together to share the road safely. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Heather Peterson. First, the Weber County Sheriff's Department is now calling the death of a mother and her 3 kids in West Haven a murder-suicide. Second, an injunction has been filed in 3rd District Court to stop the constitutional amendment on citizen initiatives from appearing on the November ballot. Third, the sentencing in former President Donald Trump's hush money trial has now been pushed until after the election. Right now, it's 86 and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues.
Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, after a lot of time spent jockeying back and forth about the rules for debates, the campaigns have finally settled and agreed on all the rules that we'll see at the debate coming up between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris on Tuesday, September the 10th. So the question is, how are the candidates preparing for the debate? What can we expect? And what does winning actually look like for both of these candidates? And really thrilled to have joining us on the program Steve Krakauer, News Nation contributor, author, editor, and host of the Fourth Watch newsletter and podcast. And Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's dive into this. You had a great piece at The Hill, thehill.com, about the outcomes. And so we have win-wins and lose-lose and win-lose. And let's break all of those down because I think it's a fascinating way to look at the expectations. And it kind of gives us some sense of how we might want to watch the debate, which I think is really interesting. So let's start with, what do you see as the win for a Vice President Harris campaign?
Yeah, I think largely the win for Vice President Kamala Harris coming out of the debate is essentially out of her hands. I mean, I think that if she does well, that will be good for her, and if she does poorly, that will be bad for her. But I think really what will make the biggest impact across the country, you know, the average voter, but particularly the people who are still undecided and who are very valuable in these swing states, is going to be really dependent on Donald Trump's performance. You know, if Donald Trump has a great debate, it really doesn't matter how great Kamala Harris does or how great the corporate media tells us that Kamala Harris did. It really will be a win for him. And if he does poorly and she does pretty well, I think that's the scenario where she walks away with a win. She holds her own and he kind of self-destructs and implodes. That's really the best scenario. So it's a little bit out of her hands, but there is a scenario, a path for her to kind of come away as the victor.
Yeah, and this was the think again moment in reading your piece for me today, and that is that a lose-lose scenario is actually kind of a win for the vice president.
Yes, well, true, right. You know, you get the self-destructing of Donald Trump, and then you get Kamala Harris having a rough night as well. I think, though, what really it comes down to is look, we saw what happened in June, right? I mean, the June debate was an example of a different scenario. It was a win for Donald Trump sure. He was very much to his points. He was in control. And then we saw President Joe Biden just self-destruct and completely fail on the stage. And what that showed us was massive, massive change came from it. Sometimes these debates happen and there's a little bit of swing here and there and a little movement in the polls. I think that, though, a scenario like that, which is certainly possible, or a lose-lose, something where Donald Trump just has this total failure and goes into a little bit of a different mode here where he's going to start to let's say, change the race in different ways. We might see, forget October surprise, we might see a September surprise. I think that will make the debate go in the rearview mirror, and then really all bets are off because we've got chaos so far in 2024, and this is another scenario where we could get more chaos ahead.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting the way you broke down kind of the win-win. If Vice President Harris does well, hits her marks, does all the things she's supposed to do in a debate, including do no harm, and if the former president does his job and stays restrained and in control and hits his talking points, how does that shape the race? If they both end up having a pretty good night, does that keep the status quo, or does it give one of them an advantage?
I think essentially it keeps the status quo, which by extension is an advantage in this current moment for President Trump. I think that Vice President Harris really needs a game changer here because yes, she this is a very, very close race, but the trajectory, you look at like Nate Silver's polling forecast, he's looking at a lot of different factors, and every single day it's actually going up and up in terms of the better chance that Donald Trump wins the election. Why? Because she didn't receive the bump that you might expect after the Democratic convention, because the polls are actually starting to normalize, because a lot of these swing states where she should be up 3-4 points based on the polling, let's just say that they've not been exactly accurate in every election in 2020 and 2016. So she needs a much bigger margin than she has right now to feel comfortable. So if it's the status quo, and yes, I think the media will say she won regardless of what happens, but I think for an average voter, if they don't see much of a change, that's going to ultimately be good for Donald Trump because it doesn't change the race in the way that she needs it to.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. We've been talking about it in the context of both of these candidates have pretty high floors and pretty low ceilings. So there's not a lot of wiggle in there, where normally you'll have a little bit bigger swing in terms of how high a ceiling can you get. But both of them seem to be kind of locked in with their bases, so their floors are fairly high. Those that are just, there's no way they're going to go from voting Democrat to voting for former President Trump, or they're not a Republican who's suddenly going to vote for Kamala Harris. So those floors are pretty high, but the ceilings for both these candidates are a little bit low. And so those margins, as you were pointing out, are really razor thin, especially in those swing states.
I like the analogy. I like that it's like a sports, we're doing NFL draft here. But I have to say, I will quibble with one thing, because I do think that the floor for Kamala Harris is potentially much lower than people are expecting. Now, the reason is because she is such an unknown quantity. And you think, okay, Kamala Harris, she's been on the national stage for 5 years now. She obviously ran in a Democratic primary, and she's been the vice president. But all the things that we know about her, certainly in the last 2 months, are because of what is sort of gently being leaked out to the press. She used to be for an EV mandate, and now she's not. Well, how do we know that? She's never actually been asked about that. Why? Even little things like banning plastic straws, which was part of her campaign. Some spokesperson told Axios this week, actually, she's not for that anymore. But she has not been pressed on these issues, not by the media and not by Donald Trump. Remember, Donald Trump, I believe, threw Joe Biden off his game a little bit in a way that he could not recover in that June debate. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris does not have the cognitive issues that Joe Biden did, but she has not been faced with this before, and she has not been given the kind of scrutiny that she is about to get on Tuesday night. So there is a potential that she really falters on that stage, that she looks like she is just not ready for the job, and there is not going to be a way for the media to ignore that. And I think that when you start to see this, you're not going to get a lot of people that say, I'm a Democrat and I'm not going to vote for Trump, but you already have the potential of people saying, I'm just going to stay home. I'm just no longer enthusiastic about this, and that's all it takes for Donald Trump to win.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the number of people that she jolted who were probably sitting on the sideline because they didn't like either the Biden-Trump scenario, but some of those are now saying, maybe I will go back to the couch, or maybe I will go on vacation that week. So fascinating stuff. Great insight. Steve Krakauer, News Nation contributor, author and editor and host of the Fourth Watch newsletter and podcast. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to having you on again as we march our way towards the first Tuesday of November.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, and that's Steve Krakauer from News Nation joining us today. And there will be many things. We'll break it all down as we get into the early part of the week next week as we anticipate that debate happening Tuesday night. ABC is the host of all of that. Will the questions be hard? Will the moderators press both candidates to go beyond the talking points and bumper sticker answers? Will either of them get past the populist messages and actually get to the policy issues in terms of what it would take to implement or how it would impact everyone down the road? Those are the things that we're going to be watching for, and we'll do a good deep dive when we get to Monday of next week and into Tuesday, preparing for that. As we look to the weekend, former President is on the road in North Carolina. He's doing a bunch of events over the weekend. Vice President Harris is doing some events this weekend, but also hunkering down in Pennsylvania to do her debate prep and some mock debates. And so we'll play through those strategies as we move forward as well. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. Representative Celeste Malloy is going to join us coming up next, talking about government regulation, a hearing that she held, and some of the insight that she has gleaned and how that might be turned into law back in Washington, D.C. That's coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top local story this hour. Police say the deaths of a woman and 3 children in West Haven this week were the result of a murder-suicide.
Lieutenant Terrence Lavely with Weber County Sheriff's Office named the mother, 32-year-old Mirabelle Ibarra. She was found shot in the car along with her 3 children. Police have ruled it a murder-suicide.
The evidence indicates that Mirabelle shot her 3 children in the rear cargo area of her vehicle before turning the gun on herself.
Officials found the gun in the car with the victims. They also say Ring doorbell footage from neighbors helps verify that conclusion. The family says they were unaware of Ibarra's mental health issues. Britt Johnson, KSL News Radio.
The North Salt Lake City Council is turning down a plan to put a homeless shelter in the Foxborough neighborhood. After the council turned down the idea, Switchpoint, the organization behind the shelter, rescinded their offer. Davis County officials will now have to find another location. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. White House officials are responding to the news that an American Turkish woman was reportedly shot and killed in the West Bank Friday. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
We are deeply disturbed by the tragic death of an American citizen, Sanor Egi, today in the West Bank, and our hearts go out to obviously her families and loved ones. We have reached out to the government of Israel to ask for more information and request an investigation.
The IDF says the woman was in an area where IDF forces were responding to an instigator of violent activity, and an investigation into her death is underway. Your money at this moment: the Dow is down 324 points, NASDAQ down 389, the S&P down 82. Coming up, a nice weekend in the forecast. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 1:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
If you ordered a steak sandwich and they served you bologna, you'd be ticked off.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A or B-A-L-O-N-E-Y. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's still bologna.
Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
We could go on and on about Window World, but folks, it's all about you.
Your home and what you need.
Window World is America's #1 window replacement company.
Call Window World at 801-281-8111.
Or check windowworldutah.com. And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date? With a COVID shot this season, designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first-time Nana moments.
Welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't-miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Point! Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Ace, you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at metamucil.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
In traffic, and this stalled vehicle is in Utah County. It's at the top of the on-ramp to northbound I-15 at 4th South in Springville. Crews have been able to get it moved over to the shoulder, but it is causing a little bit of backup on that ramp, and the metering light has been turned on to get you into the flow of the freeway traffic. This fall, head to Abravanel Hall for an elevated movie night with the Utah Symphony. For showtimes and listings, visit utahsymphony.org/films. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies and a high of 91 today, and they'll stay in the mid-90s throughout the weekend, but a few clouds move in tomorrow, and there's a chance of rain by Sunday. Right now, it's sunny and 88 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The debate over control of Utah's land will continue to be front and center among political concerns for the people of our state, and Utah legislators know that too. The government work is slow work, but consistently, Utah leaders are focusing on finding a better management solution for our land and a host of other issues. Really pleased to have joining us back on the program Representative Celeste Malloy, who represents Utah's 2nd Congressional District. And Representative Malloy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Boyd. I'm excited to be on again.
All right, you had a regulatory roundtable which covered a wide range of things where regulations seem to be creeping in or crushing some in the state of Utah. Let's start with the land issue because that's been really top of mind of late. Give us kind of the baseline in terms of what the issue is and where those rules and regulations are causing problems.
Yeah, this is a hot topic right now in Utah with the state suing for control of more land. I don't know how that lawsuit's going to turn out, but either way, Utahns should have more say in how our land is managed. And the statutory authority that land management agencies like BLM or Forest Service have for managing land is usually a lot friendlier to Utahns than the way they're implementing it. And the difference between their statutory authority from Congress and the way they're implementing it is regulation. And for 80 years, we've sort of watched this regulatory state grow up and get stronger and creep into every aspect of our lives. And the Supreme Court just took a huge step in overturning themselves in the Chevron case and saying that the court doesn't owe any deference to an agency's own interpretation of a statute. So I think we're going to see a big sea change in the next couple of years in how we view regulation, and I don't know how quickly it's going to happen, and I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but I think it's already started, and we're just going to watch it pick up momentum, and that's what we were talking about yesterday. So there's the land management part where we have things like roads being closed in Utah, or, I just talked to somebody this week who wants to cut Christmas trees on the forest, and they've been able to do it every year for the last few years, and this year they said no. And I think those kind of arbitrary decisions are going to start getting a lot more scrutiny. It's going to be tougher for agencies to just do things that aren't good for Utahns.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. I think that's was such a crucial part of what you did yesterday in terms of this roundtable talking about regulation, because often there is something that's passed by Congress, signed into law by a president, doesn't matter which political party, but then often it gets to that agency level and suddenly things start to grow and sprout and new little rules get added on, or they interpret, well, this is what this means, and so we're going to enforce it this way, and here's the penalty. And that gets pretty complicated pretty fast and very difficult if you're a business owner. I know one of the examples, I'd love to have you unpack this for our listeners, that you talked about had to do with tomatoes and how we make sure we have good, healthy tomatoes on our kitchen table has changed. Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, so just for the record, I'm not a big fan of tomatoes. I don't like to eat them because the seeds are slimy. But
ketchup only, right?
Yeah, exactly, and marinara sauce. We had a representative there from the food industry, and he has a graphic he likes to use that shows all the times a tomato gets regulated between when a seed's planted and when it's on your table. And it really is ridiculous. And because we've had this regulatory state for so long, and these rules have had the force of law for so long, I think most people don't realize that those things that are making it tougher to get a tomato on your table are not laws passed by Congress. They're rules and regulations implemented by agencies and enforced by agencies. But every time an agency touches your tomato, someone's getting paid to do that. And so it increases the cost of your tomato. And in a sick irony, you're paying the salary of the person who's increasing the cost of your tomato. So you're getting it in both directions. It's all on the taxpayers. And somebody else that was there jokingly said, I planted a tomato plant in my backyard and ate it myself without the government ever regulating it. And we all laughed, but it's actually not that funny.
Yeah.
You should be able to just eat produce without it being a big government operation.
Yeah, I just had to shake my head that a tomato gets touched 117 times before it gets to the table. And as you said, the dollars, $25 billion with all of these traceability rules. And obviously we want to have healthy things and things that are safe and all of that. But we're really getting hit on both sides. We're getting hit with the cost in terms of higher prices for the tomatoes, but we're also paying the price for all of those people who are tracking all of those tomatoes. So a little bit of a double whammy there. The other thing that you mentioned oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, after all of that, after 117 different, government opportunities to trace that tomato, it's not like tomatoes are more nutritious now than they were 100 years ago. You're not getting the tomato more efficiently. It's not curing cancer or doing your dishes or making your life better. It's still just a tomato. So what are we getting for all of that government process? And that's the conversation that I want to keep going right now. We have an opportunity to do a cost-benefit analysis or even just a benefit analysis on all of this regulation. What are we getting for the regulation? Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I want to get to two other things really quickly. You talk about two other things at this roundtable, and I love that you have these in the state where Utahns can really weigh in and really see the impact of all of these things. And you talked about two things. One, the fact that a lot of these regulations go back to where nobody can remember why it started in the first place. So some of these are like 40 years old or more. And then the other side of that is the unpredictability when an agency continues to change the rules. You mentioned those trying to cut some Christmas trees. The Capitol doesn't like that unpredictability, and that causes businesses to really freeze. So kind of address that for us.
Yeah, I mean, from an economic standpoint, economists always like to talk about rational behavior, right? What's rational behavior in this economy? And it is irrational behavior for us to expect investors to keep pouring money into our industries when we change the rules on them every 4 years, or sometimes more often than that. And especially when it comes to really capital-intensive projects, like infrastructure projects, or opening a mine, or drilling a well, the kind of things that if you are going to invest in that, you've got to know you're going to get a payoff over the next 30 or 40, 50 years. And if you know that in the next 30 years, there's potential for, what's the math there, 7 presidential elections to change the rules on you, you wouldn't invest in that. You'll go invest those dollars somewhere else in another country where you can actually get a mine permitted and get it up and running. And we can't expect to keep disincentivizing investment and living at the same level that we live.
Yeah, such great perspective. This is one of those crucial conversations, and Representative Celeste Malloy from Utah's 2nd Congressional District had a regulatory roundtable this week. Crucial conversations. These are things that we get passionate about on this show because these are those quiet things that most of us don't think about every day, but they impact us everywhere we turn, even when we don't realize it. And so often it's undermining the authority that Congress has, and it also gives us a better chance to hold Congress accountable. If you say this is in the law, don't pass it on to the regulatory agency to decide the rules and how to enforce it. So this is a crucial conversation. Representative Malloy, thanks so much for making time for us on a Friday. Great insight, great perspective, great leadership there. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, that's Representative Celeste Malloy. This is a crucial conversation. I do get passionate about the regulatory stuff because it is so detrimental to our economy, and it hurts everybody, whether it's the price of a tomato, whether it's your ability to go out and cut a Christmas tree, whether it's the land for our ranchers and farmers. It touches so many areas of our lives, and so often it's not the people we elect, but people in the agencies that are making those decisions. And we got to flip that back. I think part of what Representative Malloy is attempting to do to say, look, this is where Congress has to claw that power and authority back into their space where they can write the laws, and then it's up to the agencies to implement those as part of the executive branch. We'll be right back.
Visit the contest page on KSLNewsRadio.com. This week,
you could win a $50 gas card from Sinclair. Download the Sinclair DinoPay app and save up to 20 cents per gallon. Or win a family pack of tickets to the Utah RV Super Show, September 12th through the 15th at the Mountain America Expo Center.
Plus, honor a teacher on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Text the word contest to 57500 or go to KSLNewsRadio.com/contests.
Hercules Credit Union is about growing stronger together. That's their mantra, and that's what they do every day. And whether you're going to their office in Taylorsville or Harriman or Riverton, or whether you're just going online at HerculesCU.com, they're there to help you have confidence in your financial future. Right now, if you open up a gold tier checking, you'll earn points for travel for everyday spending. You'll have a promotional rate of 4.25% on the balance in your checking account. That's unheard of. You can earn points every time you use your debit card, up to 3 times the points on categories like groceries. All your points can be redeemed for cash back, for travel, gift cards, and much more. Plus, you get free credit monitoring. This is just one way that Hercules Credit Union is about growing stronger together with you. As I said, you can go into their offices in Taylorsville, Harriman, or Riverton, or check them out online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
It's one thing falling in love with a house, picturing yourself moving in and calling it home, and quite another navigating the world of price negotiating, mortgage lenders, and finding the budget that works best for you. An agent who's a Realtor can make understanding that world easier. Realtors have the expertise, access to proprietary data, and tools to help you get from imagining living somewhere to actually doing it. That's the kind of help we can provide, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I need to print for my business, but I really have to watch the budget.
Staples can print whatever you need. And now you get up to 30% off print purchases. So the more you print,
the more I save?
Right.
So if I print $600 worth of signs,
you save $180.
Ooh, and if I print $1 million worth, I'd save...
no clue, but I'm thinking there are a lot of zeros.
Now at Staples, the more you print, the more you save, up to 30% off. Plus, you save even more with hundreds of hot deals throughout the store. Ends 9/7, exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date?
With a COVID shot this season,
designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Today, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Heather Peterson. First, an injunction has been filed to stop the constitutional amendment discussing citizen initiatives from appearing on the November ballot. Second, Davis County will have to find a new place for a homeless shelter after the North Salt Lake City Council turned down a plan and the organization behind the plan pulled its offer. Third, no shortage of activities this weekend, including the Greek Festival, State Fair, Moab Music Festival, and more. Right now, it's 88 and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
When a nation grappling with the challenge of creating pathways to the middle class without the burden of a 4-year degree or often the student debt that goes with it, apprenticeships are emerging once again as a promising solution. The United States was really based and founded in its early days on that model of apprenticeship, and yet we've gotten so far away from that. And I think it's one of the untapped resources we have in this country that can create an extraordinary way up for many of our young people. And Heather Long is an opinion columnist for the Washington Post, has a brilliant piece in the Post talking about how more young people can actually live the American dream. And the answer is pretty simple and actually connects to this whole idea of apprenticeships. And Heather, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's dive into this. I am a big-time fan of apprenticeship programs, and I think they do provide such an extraordinary path. But let's start with just kind of a lay of the land. Help our listeners understand what is it that we're actually doing when it comes to apprenticeship programs? What are some of the challenges or some of the barriers that have prevented this from being used more in our country?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest challenge in the United States is just this mindset shift that started in the 90s when many of the millennials were entering high school, and people were just preached to that you needed to go to college to be successful, that you needed that 4-year college degree. And we have seen a huge rise in people getting that 4-year college degree. But of course, not everyone wants that. Not everyone can afford that. And we just, as a nation, really abandoned other opportunities. So today, if you look at apprenticeships in America, what I wrote the piece on, we have about 640,000 people right now, right at this moment, in apprenticeships. And that's a drop in the bucket for an economy that has 160 million workers.
Yeah, no question about that. And I do think a lot of it is that stigma, as you suggested, that people are just looking at, that's for someone who's just in the trades or someone who are in a certain occupation. I'll never forget being with a United States senator speaking to some law students. And there was a question and answer, and there was one student who was very full of himself, got up and, was spouting off all of his accomplishments, and he just passed the bar. And he said, Senator, what advice would you have for me? And the senator said, all of that preparation, all of your success has put you in a perfect position to be a fantastic apprentice at a law firm. But I thought that message was so important that to me, apprenticeship is about the most important skills that we learn. That's how to learn, the discipline of learning, and then the love of learning. that becomes part of that particular process. One of the other things you pointed out in your piece that I really loved is that we also have some of these barriers. Sometimes it's hard for businesses, especially small businesses who don't have a lot of extra staff. The red tape around those can sometimes be one of those inhibiting factors.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I did speak to several small and mid-sized companies, and the reality is, like many things in life, there's a lot of paperwork to start up an apprenticeship, even if a company wants to get this going. And so what a number of states have started to do, a lot of people point to South Carolina, which has had a lot of success in growing its apprenticeships. They actually give a $1,000 tax credit per apprentice, just to help ease a little bit of the burden. They also have set up a system with their South Carolina Technical College, or so their network of community colleges. And so if you're a small business or a mid-sized business, you just go to your local community college and you say, look, I am interested in doing this. And they say, hey, here's a couple of programs that are already in place. We've got some online courses or some in-person courses. And so you, the business, just need to focus on what are the hands-on skills that this person could do while they're actually working at your company and earning, 20 to 25 bucks an hour.
Yeah, and I think that whole idea of earning while you're learning and having that path, not only a good place to start, but a place that you can get some health insurance and some retirement and some of those kinds of things that are crucial. I also love that you put those three states together, California, Arkansas, and South Carolina, not three states we typically couple together
exactly.
when it comes to a lot of things. And so you've said they've done some good things there, and yet even with that, no one's really cracking this in terms of getting a large number of potential workers or new workers into those kind of programs.
Yeah, that's right. It's still, no state has more than 1% of their workers in a program like this. I actually looked up the Utah data since I knew we would be talking. So at the moment, Utah has just shy of 4,000 registered apprentices. That is up a lot from about 2,000 a decade ago, but it's barely 0.2% of the workforce. So a long way to go in Utah, like many, many states. A lot of it comes from governors, and you mentioned some Republican governors, Democratic governors have really embraced this and said, look, how can we break down those barriers, make the paperwork easier, maybe give a tax credit or another incentive. Another thing that's been really successful is a big push from a lot of states for youth apprenticeships, so trying to link up to high school programs. In my day in high school years ago, it was called VOTEC, vocational training. Now there's these far more sophisticated programs that can be implemented. And, all this starts to move the dial a little bit. And certainly a lot of young people are responding to it because they are so scared and just don't want to take on that level of college debt. They want a different pathway to a solid career.
Yeah, and I think that's the vital piece of that. They can actually catch a vision and say, wow, I can do that. I can see that path. I'm not going to be, making loan payments when I'm in my 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
They can see that real path there. And as you mentioned, and rightly so, pointing to the Biden administration wanting to grow that, there were some elements with semiconductors in the Inflation Reduction Act and a few other things. But in terms of really having this impact, the culture and the way business gets done, the way we train up employees, we still got a long, long way to go. What are some of the other things that you're watching for in the years ahead that might give us a signal or might be part of the solution to really make this kind of transformation?
Yeah, I think a key one is moving beyond what we traditionally think of apprenticeships for. So most people, when they think about it, they're thinking about trades. They're thinking about becoming a plumber or a welder or an electrician. And those are definitely still great paths to a very solid career. We've all probably hired a plumber at some point in life, and those people make good money. But what I've seen in the last few years that's really encouraging is you're seeing companies like Google and IBM and Microsoft and JP Morgan Chase have all started apprenticeship programs, and then they've been so successful that many of those companies have actually grown their programs and looked for even more areas that they can take someone often right out of high school and say, look, we'll help you get your associate's degree or take a few classes online, but at the same time, what we really want you to do, is work in our company, often in like data center, data management type roles. And they're finding that these young people are really good workers, and they're very loyal, unlike a lot of college degree kids who come in with a 4-year degree who are ready to run the place and ready to go to the next highest paying job. It's been great for the business and for a lot of these young people.
Oh, I love it. This is a really important conversation we need to be having more of across the country, in our own communities, in the halls of Congress. This is one we've got to get to. I think it holds so much. Heather Long, opinion columnist for the Washington Post. Check out her piece at thewashingtonpost.com. And this is a great way to help more young people actually live their own version of the American dream. Heather, thanks so much for joining us today. Fantastic perspective.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Great perspective there on apprenticeships. I think it's such a key to so many unlocking their version of the American dream. Well, that wraps it up for hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We're going to kick off hour number 2 with our friend Johanna Maska. We'll talk about the debate coming up on Tuesday. We'll also talk about how Democrats and Republicans lionize those they like and demonize those they don't. We'll also talk about the special treatment of influencers over media at the national conventions. Much more in hour number 2 of Inside Sources coming up on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top story this hour. A bipartisan group is asking a 3rd District Court to pull Constitutional Amendment D from the November ballot.
The amendment language that's being used is it's misleading. It's misleading Utah voters.
Laura Lewis with the Mormon Women for Ethical Government says the Utah Supreme Court already ruled against legislators this summer, saying they ignored an initiative that would redistrict the state. Lawmakers support the language, though, saying it helps voters fully understand the measures they're deciding on. The family of the woman in West Haven who police say killed her 3 children before turning the gun on herself are issuing a statement. They say they knew nothing about the mother's mental health and only ever knew her to be a loving mother. Police are still investigating the case. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Days after a deadly shooting in a high school in Georgia, authorities in Maryland responded to a shooting inside a high school this afternoon that left 1 student seriously injured. Hartford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor says the incident was isolated and resulted from a fight inside a men's bathroom.
This altercation apparently took place in the bathroom that resulted in a single shot, what we believe to be a single shot being fired, which struck the victim.
The suspect fled the school, but he was later found and taken into custody. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 413 points, the NASDAQ down 443, the S&P down 88. Coming up, it'll be a warm weekend if you're heading to one of Utah's many festivals. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time is 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is a serious heart condition. Some symptoms include being short of breath, feeling tired, or having dizziness or chest pain. My HCM impacted how I felt and what I could do. So I asked my cardiologist about treatment advances that gave me new options. That conversation was big for me. That's why I'm working with Bristol-Myers Squibb to raise awareness about HCM and to help others like me. Talk to your cardiologist today and visit hcmrealtalk.com to learn more.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb.
Making an Impact, sponsored by Grainger. One Minnesota bus driver had a homeless woman board the bus wearing no shoes, so she stepped in by giving the sneakers on her feet away.
I knew that you're not supposed to drive in your socks. It's a big no-no. But I couldn't help it.
For the ones who get it done, Grainger offers professional-grade supplies and solutions, made for every industry and backed by product experts. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by.
Need a ride? Call Utah Transit Authority's referral line.
This dedicated phone number is a resource created specifically for individuals with disabilities, aging adults over the age of 60, and veterans who need temporary assistance finding specialized transportation solutions. Simply give us a call at 801-287-2870. Leave your name and phone number, and a UTA representative will get back to you soon. If you're facing ongoing day-to-day transportation challenges, the UTA referral line is here to help. From medical appointments to the grocery store, we're here to get you where you need to go. Please call 801-287-2870. This dedicated phone number is a resource created specifically for individuals with disabilities, aging adults over the age of 60, and veterans who need temporary assistance finding specialized transportation solutions. 801-287-2870. That's 801-287-2870.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL, News Radio 1027.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are seeing backups both north and southbound, and it might be due to an accident at 3rd West and 3rd South in downtown Salt Lake City. Valley Freeway traffic looking pretty good, but we do have a crash with Salt Lake City PD in the cleanup stages 8th South and 600 East. Common Spirit, hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced health care in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny with a high of 91 today. A few more clouds move in over the weekend with a chance of rain. Highs will stay in the mid-90s. Right now it's sunny and 90 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headline when it comes to today's politics and the decision as to whether you should lionize or demonize someone depends on the day and whether or not you agree with the deed. Is that the way we ought to approach it? Or should we think again? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, if you want to get some fresh perspective into your day, I'm going to recommend you start subscribing to the Substack from Johanna Maska. Johanna's a communication professional, a former campaign advisor to former President Barack Obama, and just one of the great thinkers in the country, someone who always helps me think again about what I think I know. And I've got a long list of questions today. So, Johanna, welcome back to the show.
Boyd, I think you're the great thinker, and I'm so thrilled to be on your show with you.
There's so many things to get to, and several of these you wrote about on your Substack. But I want to start with Stephanie Grisham. So this goes back to the Democratic National Convention. Here you had Stephanie Grisham, who, of course, was part of the Trump administration, and she speaks at the Democratic National Convention. And it caused a whole flurry of lionizing and demonizing that I think are pretty instructive for us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I talked to Stephanie on the Monday after the DNC, and, you know, it had been a massive whirlwind for her. She was one of the earliest hires for Donald Trump. She was working with Melania Trump very closely. She got to know the family very well. She was at Mar-a-Lago for holidays. She still admires some elements of, you know, she wants Melania Trump to go out there and tell people to stop bullying. But on January 6th, she got very frustrated that she tried to get Melania Trump to just issue a statement and say, this violence is not okay, and she didn't. So Stephanie that day decided to quit, and she has subsequently decided to endorse Kamala Harris. so they asked her to speak at the DNC. Now, Stephanie had been the press secretary for some time at the White House. And at that time, Republicans would lionize her. I mean, you said the words. She had been such a trusted person, and Democrats would demonize her. I mean, they would say she was Stephanie's had a hard life. She was a single mom. She has had some struggles in her past. And Democrats would say just absolutely awful things about Stephanie. Well, she speaks at the DNC, and Morning Joe wants her on right away. Everybody, Joy Reid's like, come on, even though, I've said awful things about you. All of a sudden, she's, the soup du jour.
Yeah.
And here's Stephanie, after the administration, she had felt so frustrated by it all that she had just moved to this very rural community in Kansas. And when I mean rural, it's outside of Hayes, Kansas. And I know Kansas. I went to the University of Kansas. So I know how rural it is. And she's got a animal sanctuary. So she takes care of animals. And by the time I spoke to her, she had to go back to the animal sanctuary because all these Republicans were saying awful things that she had work done. They were saying terrible things about her weight. They were saying she gained weight. She's like, I'm going through menopause. Jeez, So she literally sits down in the middle of her field and is like drinking a drink that she made herself because she's just like, how did we get here? And the two of us were just talking about, like, neither of us ever wanted this division. And, like, how do we change it?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, that is the crucial conversation. And I just love the way you framed all of that in such a personal way, that connection to say, look, as we go about lionizing and then demonizing and and lionizing, depending on where people are on a given day, that's crazy behavior. That's not normal. That's not rational or reasonable. And we have to get back to that space and give people some grace in that and get to a different place. I want to jump to it.
And to be clear, I just want to be clear that I think both of us know that we both have been responsible for that too. Yes. And so it's like, particularly when you've been in it and you see it, it's like, oh God, this is not good. We've got to stop. So yeah.
See, and that's another reason why we love to have you on this, because we can have some authenticity, some courageous vulnerability. Those are all those key ingredients that we've got to get back to as a country. And part of that is another Substack piece that you put up this week that just got me thinking, too, in terms of how are we going about all of this? And you talked about, again, kind of what was going on with the influencer crowd that has sort of crowded out the journalist crowd in terms of covering and asking questions of those who are seeking high office.
So I talked to my friend who was one of the people coordinating with the DNC, and she was shocked when she saw that the DNC was going to do a party. Well, and it was with the campaign and other entities. They were doing a yacht party for creators. And she was like, oh my God, this is terrible. There were about 200 creators, quote unquote, invited to the DNC. And these are people with big followings. They may not have anything to do with politics. I mean, they may be people who, have a mommy blog or a, Twitch gamer, or they have a following at their university, and they were all invited by the DNC. And I don't think either of us have a problem with them being invited to the DNC. The yacht party language was like particularly offensive to those of us who are like, there's a lot of people hurting, like, please no. But, it was the problem was, and the backlash that I saw was the press corps that travel with the president and now the vice president. I mean, many of them are aboard the vice president's plane now. There are big debates going on how many people are going to have access on that plane, what kind of interviews she's going to give. There's a lot of concern that she's not giving enough interviews. And this at the same time that they were giving others these creators access, including one interview with one of the creators. So there was a big hoopla around it. And honestly, there are a lot of Democrats who have concerns about this. I wrote about it because I believe that the press is vital to democracy. And my problem is, and again, like looking at our responsibility on this, we were the dawn of Facebook, President Obama's campaign and entity. And so we actually did invite some unusual creators to come to the press briefing room and do things like that. Well, in doing so, what's happened over the time, and we should debate the media too, but there have been decisions made at media organizations and, they've lost their business model or condensed or kept certain executives and gotten rid of all the journalists, which is a whole other problem.
Whole other story, yeah.
But in basically doing this, what we've got is a bunch of people who know nothing getting access to the leaders, or like Elon Musk, who clearly agrees with President Trump. He endorsed him, getting the sit down with Donald Trump. And our journalists are not getting nearly as much time. And what I saw, Boyd, you probably know this too, when you see the dynamics of the press corps with a leader around the world, it tells you a lot about democracy. Yeah. And I was always so proud that we could not tell our press corps what to do, that they were fiercely independent and they could ask all the tough questions. And if you're a reasonable person on either side of the aisle, Republican or Democrat, you know your side's not right all the time, and you want people to be shining light, holding people accountable. And so you're going to put up with some stories that you disagree with, because the broader importance of bringing light to dark places is too critical. Well, right now what we're doing is we're leaning in, both campaigns are leaning into these influencer types. I mean, the kinds of people who Donald Trump is doing podcast interviews with all the time, who Kamala Harris, Harris, I guess in her limited defense, maybe isn't sitting down with as many people, period, which is a whole different problem.
Whole different problem, but yeah, we get it.
But I just think she should be calling into drive time radio. She should be calling into the TV shows. Fine, you don't want to do hair and makeup and you got debate prep and all these other things. I don't blame you.
Fine.
But call into everybody, feed the beast, and talk to the press, because the last thing I want to do is end up with the likes of Venezuela, where Hugo Chavez had a paparazzi all around him, but they were all owned by what he wanted them to put out.
Yeah. Such great perspective. I hope the vice president is listening so she'll come on this show, because we want to have a conversation, because we have questions for sure. Johanna Maska, as always, brilliant analysis and so many things to think about. And I love the way you concluded that we cannot just take the friendly interviews and the influencer interviews, or we will end up like Venezuela and China and Egypt. Johanna, as always, thanks for making time for us. We look forward to having you back real soon.
Great to join you.
All right, that's Johanna Maska, communication professional, former campaign advisor for Barack Obama, and a fantastic Substack that'll get you thinking every week. You need to check that out as well. We'll step aside. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Next week, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris lay out two different futures.
Expand the tax deduction for startups.
Defeat inflation and reignite explosive economic growth.
Get special coverage all day Monday and Tuesday so you can make your choice. Your voice, your vote 2024. Next week on KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Today, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
It's me again, and of course, I'm at the annual fall extravaganza at J&J Garden Center in Layton. And what a great time to buy. Right now, all containerized trees, all shrubs, and all perennials are 20% off. You heard me right. J&J's entire inventory of containerized trees, shrubs, and perennials are 20% off their regular price. J&J Garden Center definitely has the best products at the best price and most definitely the best service too. But don't take my word for it. Come experience J&J Garden Center for yourself. Take advantage of their incredible fall tree, shrub, and perennial extravaganza. Take the Layton Parkway exit, Main Street to Gentile, then west 2 miles. You've got to see it to believe it. You really do.
Country grown to your home. J&J Garden Center.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why most of our over 18,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with a needs analysis where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in 1 day. We also have flexible, no money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition smart bed. Limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
It's one thing falling in love with a house, picturing yourself moving in and calling it home, and quite another navigating the world of price negotiating, mortgage lenders, and finding the budget that works best for you. An agent who's a Realtor can make understanding that world easier. Realtors have the expertise, access to proprietary data, and tools to help you get from imagining living somewhere to actually doing it. That's the kind of help we can provide, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Mr. Mac, suiting for every important chapter of your life. Weddings, prom, new job, any celebration, mission callings, and more. Mr. Mac is there to suit your needs with 9 locations or MrMac.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Heather Peterson. First, the family of a woman in West Haven who police say killed herself and her 3 kids said they had no idea she was struggling with mental health. Second, authorities in Maryland say a shooting at a high school earlier today was an isolated incident and only 1 student was injured. The suspect is in custody. Third, parts of the Jordan River Trail will be closed during the Utah State Fair because of illicit activities and drug problems. Right now it's 90 and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources. Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, it is that time of the week where we give you the Inside Sources inside look at presidential politics. And, of course, things continue to heat up now that we have passed Labor Day and we are 60 days away from the first Tuesday of November when the ballots will be cast. And figure out who wins all of these races up and down the ballot, but we'll focus primarily on the presidential race as it enters a critical phase. Vice President Kamala Harris, of course, and former President Donald Trump find themselves locked in a razor-thin battle across the key battleground states. We've been saying throughout the week this week that both of these candidates have what I'm terming high floors and low ceilings. In other words, they have a solid base, both of them, that is sort of immovable. There are a number of people in the Republican camp with Donald Trump who, under no circumstances, are they going to vote for a Democrat or especially for Kamala Harris. So they have a base. They have a floor, and it's pretty high. Kamala Harris, likewise, has a pretty high floor made up of those solid Democrats and those who could never imagine anywhere that they would vote for Donald Trump. So pretty high floors. But they also have pretty low ceilings. And what I mean by that is often you'll talk about the upside, the potential of a candidate and what they could actually do, or that people might catch the idea or the imagination of what they could do. And so suddenly you're bringing new people into that equation. Both of these candidates have fairly low ceilings, although I would say that Vice President Harris has a little higher ceiling at the moment because she's more of an idea, because she hasn't been talking about specifics 4 weeks in to her run. And so there's a little bit more of a little more higher ceiling, but Donald Trump has a little bit of a higher floor. Again, that leads us to a very narrow band of folks who will ultimately decide the election. So both of the candidates are trying to figure out how do they tap into those in that little space between their high floors and very low ceilings. Kamala Harris delivered a speech in New Hampshire yesterday focusing on her economic agenda. She announced a plan to give small business projects a big chunk of government money.
Part of my plan is we will expand the tax deduction for startups to $50,000. It's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business.
So that's one that is an interesting one. It is specific, more specific than a lot of the other things, and it's also realistic. I think it's one that people can wrap their heads around and say, oh, that is a good idea to incentivize that. She also talked about providing low and no interest loans for small businesses.
Second, my plan will help existing small businesses grow. We will provide low and no interest loans to small businesses that want to expand, and we will, and this is very important, cut the red tape that can make starting and growing a small business more difficult than it needs to be.
All right, so all of those things centered around small business. I think this was really smart. There was a host of things. She even talked about some additional resources that she wants to provide to support some of those small businesses.
So under my plan, we will expand access to venture capital. We will support innovation hubs and business incubators. And we will increase federal contracts with small businesses.
So all of those, I think, are smart plans. Now, the one thing she didn't get to was how do you pay for all of that, and what does that mean? But this is one of those that plays into that populist space, small business owners, entrepreneurs, people wanting to say, hey, I want a shot at my version of the American dream. And so I think this was smart strategy by Vice President Harris and her team. I think of all the things she has thrown out there in terms of ideas for the campaign, this is actually the one that probably has the most promise and the most possibility of actually happening. Many of the other proposals have been much more just populist things that don't have a snowball's chance in Guam of ever becoming law or being implemented. Now, the same thing is true on the Trump campaign side of the equation. Former president went to the Economic Club in New York City yesterday, promising low prices and low regulation barriers for businesses.
I am promising low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs, low interest rates, secure borders, low crime, and surging incomes for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
A lot of sweeping generalities there. Zero specifics other than low. We may have to get Shane to give us a definition of low, what that actually means. So this is an area where the former president should actually have an advantage because he can say he is a business person. He does understand how business works. He can get into this, but he didn't. He didn't. even at the Economic Club in New York City, he just said lower prices, lower regulation. Those are good things, and I think they're right. He actually has a pretty good record when it comes to cutting regulation and regulatory burden on companies, but he didn't offer any of that. And so it was sweeping generalities. Now, one of the biggest points in the former president's economic plan is actually about energy.
First, I will end Kamala Harris's anti-energy crusade and implement a policy of energy abundance, energy independence, and even energy dominance. My plan will cut energy prices in half or more than that within 12 months of taking office.
Again, those are good populist messages, not a lot of specifics or details there. And sadly, both campaigns are failing on this front of providing the specifics. And part of that is because as voters, we haven't been rewarding specifics. Because when people start to get to the specifics, hard decisions have to be made. Whenever you implement real policy, a real piece of legislation, there are things that are going to be painful. There are going to be some people who feel like maybe they didn't do as well under that particular bill or piece of regulation or piece of law than others. And someone has to pay for it. Someone has to pay for it. Because as we know, the math always wins in the end, and we can't just keep racking up the debt. But neither of them are talking about that. But again, we penalize them. If someone says they want to reform Social Security and make it solvent and stronger and better and sustainable, they get bombarded as they don't care and they're going to push grandma off the cliff. And so neither candidate is really showing anything in terms of specific. Keep rewarding bumper sticker slogans as opposed to good public policy. I want to sneak in one other thing that is important on the presidential front. This came out just in the last hour. A court in Michigan has ordered that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name be removed from the Michigan ballot. So remember, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Withdrew. He endorsed former President Trump. He wanted to get his name off the ballot, especially in battleground states like Michigan. And some places are saying, no, you can't take your name off the ballot. It's too late. Michigan court ruled just about an hour ago that they do need to remove Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name. And he was polling at a few percentage points and in a very tight race. That could be part of the difference. So a lot of things happening on the Inside Sources inside look at presidential politics. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news, but more Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
.2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top local story this hour. We have breaking news on a disturbing story that may be difficult for some to hear. A 4-month-old baby girl who authorities say was severely injured by her babysitter has died after being taken off life support. Unified Police say 29-year-old Zachary Walton had become frustrated with her crying and slammed her head into the metal corner of an elevator. Walton is facing charges for murder and aggravated child abuse. Police are calling the death of a mother and her 3 children who were killed in West Haven earlier this week a murder-suicide. KSL's Britt Johnsons has more.
Police say 32-year-old Mirabelle Ibarra and her children were killed in a murder-suicide. Lieutenant Terrence Lavely with Weber County Sheriff's Office says the crime scene was contained to the vehicle where they found the bodies and the gun. They don't believe anyone else was involved and were able to get neighbors' surveillance footage to confirm.
The mother's family says they were unaware of any mental health issues, and they encourage anyone who's struggling to reach out for help. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Donald Trump's sentencing in his hush money trial has been pushed back until after the election from September 18th to November 26th. Trump was found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records tied to payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. The judge says his decision was to avoid any appearance of trying to impact the presidential election. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 410 points, the NASDAQ down 436, and the S&P down 94. Coming up, a warm weekend ahead with just a chance of showers. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
A secure retirement just doesn't happen by accident. When that day comes, what's most important to you? Are you sure to have more money than month? What about unexpected medical costs? Do you want to leave something to the kids or the grandkids? I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want you to know we specialize in these questions and can help make your retirement dream a reality with some of the highest guarantees in the business. Imagine getting up to a guaranteed 12% growth on your retirement income and up to a 30% bonus up front just for opening an account. If you have funds sitting idle in an old 401k or IRA, consider guaranteeing it to secure the peace of mind you deserve. Don't leave your financial security to chance. Take advantage of the highest guarantees I've seen in my career. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit us online at TrajanWealth.com.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
If it's a door-to-door salesman, buyer beware. Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
Answer that door and prepare for some serious baloney.
You know, overpriced, but on sale today.
Big special.
Manager's discount.
Model home in the neighborhood.
Remember, the sale ends today.
Hey, it's all baloney.
Window World's different.
Check windowworldutah.com.
Or call 801-281-8111. Window World.
Simply the best for less. And as Doug always said, that's no baloney.
Before you take another injection or another weight loss pill, can you listen for just a second? We just want to talk to you about Soda Weight Loss because I was with you. I was so frustrated. I thought, I want to lose this weight and lose this weight fast. I don't want to live one more day like this. But then I realized, but I want to be healthy for the rest of my life, not just for the next year or two while I'm taking these pills. With Soda Weight Loss, I lost 34 pounds in less than 3 months. It's really sustainable, which is what Tyler says.
I would recommend soda because it's sustainable. This is lifetime change. I would recommend soda because it works.
And look, most people, if they go the injection route or the pill route, end up gaining that weight and some on the other side of it. That's not going to happen with Soda Weight Loss because they change the way you look at food. You're going to keep that weight off, and isn't that your real goal? Find out more. Go to sodaweightloss.com. It's spelled SOTA, and it stands for State of the
Art. Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now we have a new accident in Weber County. This is southbound I-15 as you're approaching Riverdale Road. It looks like left lane is blocked, but the two other lanes of travel are open. However, we still have delays back to 31st Street in Ogden. The Utah RV Super Show is back September 12th through 15th at Mountain America Expo Center. Unplug from distractions and plug into your family at the Utah RV Super Show. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies and highs expected to hit 91 today. Then we'll see temps in the low to mid 90s throughout the weekend with some clouds and a chance of showers on Sunday. Right now it's sunny and 90 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we continue to march our way and mash our way towards a presidential election, we are in the midst of a very troubling trend, and that is the concentration of power in the presidency. In recent years, we've seen an alarming number of executive orders, which go all the way back to then-President Barack Obama and his administration. Often, Congress has been abdicating their authority to the executive branch. The executive branch has been all too willing to take that and run with it in a big way. But giving the president more power not only threatens the voice of the people, it actually has a lot of voters getting a lot more comfortable that as long as it's their person in charge, they might be okay with abdicating some of those freedoms that we hold so dear in this country. J.D. Tuchili, of course, is contributing editor at Reason. You can check out his pieces at reason.com and has just a fantastic must-read piece when it talks about how so many voters seem to be yearning for a dictator and just how dangerous that is to our country. And, J.D., thanks for making time for us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So let's dig into this. You did this in a brilliant way to just unpack it a little bit. Everyone says we don't want a monarch, we don't want a king in this country, we don't want a dictator or an authoritarian, and yet there's a lot of things pointing otherwise. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it seems that as Americans have withdrawn to their partisan camps and come to really fear and hate each other, which is exactly what surveys show on an accelerating basis, they've completely lost patience for checks and balances. They've also invested a lot of hopes and dreams in the office of the presidency to impose their vision on a country in which half of the population at least doesn't agree with that vision. When you poll people, and this comes from a recent YouGov poll, people think the president actually has a lot more power even than that kind of bloated position already does have. Republicans are more likely than Democrats to attribute like near kingly powers to the presidency, but majorities of both Republicans and Democrats think that the president has almost unilateral power over foreign policy, military operations, judicial appointments, and natural disaster response. Republicans think that they have more control over things like tax rates, national debt, and other issues. And Democrats believe that the presidents have that kind of control over gun deaths, abortion access, and poverty rates. They invest this office with near dictatorial powers if the president can wave a magic wand. And the thing is, when they place these demands on that office, the people who take these offices, the flawed human beings who run for and win the presidency, try to rise to the occasion, and we all kind of suffer for that. The presidency has increased in power. It has acquired more and more authority over the years. And people like it when the presidents do that. They tell pollsters that, no, they don't want a unilateral dictator in the White House, but they mean that in the abstract. When you ask them, okay, but what if it was the candidate you want to be president? If he was, and here's a poll from April that said, okay, what if Joe Biden won, or what if Donald Trump won? Would you want the president to take action on the country's important policy issues without waiting for Congress or the courts? And 57% of Republicans said they wanted Donald Trump to do that if he won, and 39% of Democrats said they wanted Joe Biden to do that if he won. People only in the abstract oppose the idea of the U.S. being a dictatorship. But when it's their guy, yeah, they're kind of all for it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I never thought I would see the day when I would see candidates on both sides of the aisle actually running on the fact that they would, on day one, issue 37 executive orders. It's like that's crazy.
It is nuts, and it's accelerated. I mean, Joe Biden, even the New York Times editorial board, which supported Joe Biden for president, told him to cool it on the executive orders. Within the first month of him taking office, it's because he'd built on the precedent set by Donald Trump, who was in there during COVID. Trump's built on the precedent set by Barack Obama, who was actually elected as an opponent of unilateral presidential authority, and then went ahead and, one of his big things as an illustration was he ordered the killing of an American citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, by drone strike without any kind of due process whatsoever. So we are kind of reaching a point where presidents are increasingly ruling by decree, not to the extent that the American people think that they do, but also, very troublingly, not quite yet to the extent the American people want them to rule by decree. Yeah. And that is kind of making things worse in the country.
Yeah, and that leads to another point in your piece that is so critical for us to think about, and that is this whole idea of the cult of the presidency. And we've seen this on both sides. We really have deified our politics and our politicians in particular, especially those running for the highest office in the land. We've deified them. And in many cases, the flip side of that is that we've politicized our sacred spaces and faith organizations. So we've kind of flipped the script on a lot of that. But when you have a deified president, again, regardless of political party, you're going to want them to do all the things as opposed to go through the right processes, which include that little pesky thing called getting it through Congress.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And I quoted a scholar named Gene Healy. He works at the Cato Institute, and he wrote a book that came out in 2008 called The Cult of the Presidency. And he was troubled then by all the power and hope and faith that people invested in the presidency as if it was a religious figure, just like you said. I mean, it had become a cult. The thing is, in the 16 years since that book came out, it's gotten much worse. And his new edition came out this year. And I'll tell you, the foreword that Gene wrote and I know Gene, but the foreword that he wrote to this book is very downbeat. And he warned me ahead of time it was going to be very downbeat because the presidency has acquired so much more power and because the American people have put so much more expectation of unilateral power on the presidency, at least so long as the candidate that they want to take office wins the presidency. It's degenerated to the point now where it's really hard to imagine how we back away from a president who doesn't do things like try to dismiss student loans with the issuance of an executive order, or try to suppress speech, or as we saw during COVID, try to shut down businesses unilaterally and order companies to prioritize orders that the government issues. The presidency has become vastly more powerful and continues to do so with the support of the American people.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier in the program about how this has really led to such populist, disconnected from principle and policy kinds of promises, whether it's forgiving loans here or handing out money here or price controlling this rent or groceries or whatever it may be. And so how do we get to where we can start looking at things longer term than just the next election cycle? Because that's where we start to say, okay, we actually do have to work for a compromise. We actually do have to work on good governance based on principle, leading to good public policy. How do we start to change the dynamic of that conversation?
I think we have to get past the idea of politics as warfare, where we're trying to jam our favored outcome down the throats of the unwilling. And the only way I see you doing that is decentralizing politics, making the presidency much less important, but also making the whole federal government much less important. The closer you move decision-making down to the individuals, to the communities in which the individuals live, the less likely it is that policies that are decided upon are going to be really resented and kind of be hostile and alien to those who suffer them. Plus, if they're made on a local level and you really don't like it, it's much easier to move and go someplace else where things are more to your liking than it is to leave the country. So I think that decentralizing politics, bringing things back down to the local level, and my thing, of course, is always the individual. People should have more say in their own lives. Less of it should be done by government at any level, but if it has to be done by government, make it local, state at the highest level, and the Fed should be sitting there in that swamp over in D.C., doing as little as we can imagine.
Yes, doing as little as possible is a good place, but it does start with each of us individually maximizing, doing the most that we can, because if we do want the government to be less involved in our lives, we got to make the politics less involved in our lives as well, and less important to our lives, I think is the way to frame that all up. JD Tuchili, contributing editor at Reason. Fantastic piece. Check that out at reason.com. JD, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Great perspective as always from JD Tuchili. If we have made this imperial presidency, this cult of the presidency, and we want them to do all these sweeping things by executive order, just remember what gets done by executive order gets undone by executive order. That creates instability, insecurity, and it ends up hurting the poor and the most vulnerable the most. We'll be right back.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, today through Sunday. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Today, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit HotTubAndSwimSpaSale.com.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
I got behind on my taxes. It's a horrible feeling.
He was in denial.
And when I got those letters from the IRS, you wanted to act like they didn't exist.
Finally, Dan turned to Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima got me a settlement with the IRS. These people are really people-friendly. It was every bit of a new lease on life for me.
The fast action and the great results made Dan's head spin.
I felt like I was in a dream, but it's real, and I have paperwork to prove it. They got the job done, and life is good.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation.
If you're worried about what's going to happen with the IRS, stop worrying. Make the call now.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you're always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Tim and Amanda.
One of the big differences, I think, between reading a story online and hearing it from us, Tim, is that, you and I are allowed to share a reaction. We need to be able to say, what in the world were they thinking? So that people listening will know. We feel it too. When we read a story that sounds ridiculous, we're right with you. It sounds ridiculous.
Well, we get caught up, I'm sure just like our listeners do sometimes, in death scrolling on social media. And fact-checking it on your own is tough. The great thing about tuning in every morning and starting your morning with us on KSL is you can count on the fact that when that information comes out of the radio in your direction, it comes from reliable sources.
It's already been fact-checked.
Right. And that's not always easy when you're getting it online. Finding who wrote it, when was it written, has it been updated with the current facts of the day that change sometimes minute to minute, not just day to day.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Tim and Amanda.
Do I look forward to reporting the news? Yes, insofar as it helps me understand what's happening.
We know that it's important information that's going to impact people's lives, and so that makes the job of reporting the news that day easier.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Heather Peterson. First, the 4-month-old baby from Midvale, who police say was severely injured by her babysitter, has died after being taken off life support. Second, several bipartisan groups have filed a lawsuit to stop the constitutional amendment on citizen initiatives from appearing on the November ballot. Third, the sentencing for former President Donald Trump's hush money trial has been pushed back until after the election. Right now it's 90 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always, as we round out the day and round out the week. Of course, a lot of news happening, as always, especially relating to presidential politics and what's happening there. We've had just a slew of extraordinary guests today, as we always do, people who are just getting us to think again. And I caught something today that got me thinking again on a number of fronts. Often on this show, we talk about the absolute predictability of consequences, those things that happen because we make bad choices. Often, as I tell my grandchildren, you put your hand on the stove, there is an absolute predictable consequence. You're going to get burned. You keep teasing your little sister or little brother, you're going to get sent to your room, or you're going to have a punishment. There will be consequences. Absolutely predictable. And same thing is true for all of us, whether it's in our personal lives, in our businesses. There's some pretty easy to look at absolute predictable consequences. But there's also this thing, especially when it comes to governing and government, about unintended consequences. And I saw at Reason.com today, they had this fantastic video. You should go watch it at Reason.com called Great Moments in Unintended Consequences. This is put together by Austin Bragg, Meredith Bragg, and John Carter. Austin's a senior producer at Reason. Meredith is the director of special projects, and John is a producer there at Reason.com. And so I want you to listen to one of these in the unintended consequences category when it comes to government controlling prices. We've heard a little bit about that in the presidential campaign in terms of just controlling some prices. This goes to a historic example about beef grief.
The year 1946. The problem? The price of beef is skyrocketing, and voters are angry. And it's an election year. The solution? Reinstate federal wartime price controls. Sounds like a great idea. With the best of intentions, what could possibly go wrong? Turns out, artificially low prices are harder to swallow when you're the one selling. Angry farmers unwilling to sell their meat at government-mandated prices refused to bring their cattle to market. Meat production plummeted. Now everyone was angry. Miners went on strike. Butchers closed. Hospitals complained they'd have to serve horse meat. With voters up in arms and an election weeks away, President Truman lifted the restrictions. But not soon enough. In what's been called the beefsteak election, Democrats were slaughtered at the polls, losing Congress for the first time in 16 years. But at least that meat shortage was cured.
All right. Unintended consequences and absolutely predictable consequences. So the big beefsteak election, the cost of beef was going up. And so voters were angry. And so people running for office decided the best thing to do was, of course, to control the prices. And so government stepped in and reinstituted some things that went back years and years to control the price of beef. Well, turns out the ranchers didn't want to sell their beef at that particular price because it wasn't worth it to them, so they kept them. And what happened? There wasn't enough beef. And the prices went up, not down. And now everybody's angry. And I love the way they started this whole framing with great idea, best of intentions, what could possibly go wrong? That's often what happens when government gets into the middle of things they ought not be in the middle of. Let's take another example. Again, this is from Reason.com about traffic lights reaching new lights.
The year 2010-ish. The problem? Traffic lights in Japan use up too much energy. The solution? Replace the incandescent bulbs with energy-efficient LEDs that last longer and cost less to operate. Sounds like a great idea. With the best of intentions, what could possibly go wrong? Turns out, it gets cold. And since LED bulbs don't radiate enough heat to melt snow and ice, the signals became obscured, resulting in numerous traffic accidents and workers being sent out to clean the signals with brooms. And it wasn't just Japan. In Green Bay, maintenance crews in bucket lifts scraped their new lights by hand. St. Paul used air compressors, and Newark even employed super soakers filled with antifreeze. Various solutions are in the works, but until they get it all figured out, just treat it like a four-way stop, okay? That's no joke.
Okay, traffic lights. We've got lights that are using too much energy. They burn out too fast. So we're going to go with the LED lights. Only problem, they don't create enough heat to melt the ice and snow, so they get covered up, and then everybody's crashing into each other. So then what do you have to do? You actually have to send out more people in more trucks and cars to clean them off. Now, they did get pretty creative, whether they were doing that with brooms, air compressors, or I love what New Jersey was doing and using the air-soaking guns filled with antifreeze to do that. So, again, great idea, best of intentions. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it turns out plenty can go wrong. And that's why we always have to think again about what we think we know when we have these great ideas. And so when you hear something about rent control, if you hear something about controlling the price of groceries, just remember it may be a great idea. It might sound awesome to you. They may have the best of intentions. We won't judge that. That's up to them. And what could possibly go wrong? Lots. Parking lots. All kinds of lots. Because often the reverse is the result. And I have to be honest, in a lot of these things, it is predictable. While we talk about the unintended consequences, there's a lot of predictable consequences as well. But the consequences come, and they're usually very expensive, and they usually hurt the poor and the most vulnerable the most. And so be wary, be careful. We talked about the imperial presidency today, and often in the imperial presidency, we get a lot of executive orders that are very populist in nature that sound very good on the front end, but there's unintended consequences. And whether it's the price of beef or whether it's traffic lights in the snow, the results are not the results that we actually want in the end. It requires good principles, good public policy that goes through the right process to become law. All right, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us today. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference. And I promise it'll lead to a great consequence. We'll see you on Monday.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The following is a presentation of the new skin, BYU Sports Network. BYU football is 2 hours away from kickoff, and Cougar Pregame Live is here to get you ready for BYU versus SMU. Cougar Pregame Live is brought to you by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. Cougar Pregame Live is also brought to you by Tucano's Brazilian Grill. Phenomenal flavors, a festive setting, and more fun than you can shake a skewer at. Also brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen, helping Utah families for over 30 years. Alongside Hans Olsen, here's your host, Jason Shepard.
Good afternoon and happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Mountain America Credit Union Cougar Pregame Live. Mountain America is the official credit union of BYU Athletics, and tonight, under the Friday night lights in the Lone Star State. The BYU Cougars in Dallas, Texas for their first road game of the season against the 2-0 SMU Mustangs. As mentioned, my name is Jason Shepard. I'm hanging out with you in our BYU radio studios in Provo, Utah. Thank you for joining us for BYU football. And joining me from Gerald J. Ford Stadium in the Metroplex is former BYU Cougar great Hans Olsen. Hans, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Shep, and we're all settled here in the nest, overlooking the horseshoe with the closed flat end at the Ford Stadium, and it is a beautiful day right now. You got some overcast clouds kind of moving in on us a little bit, probably going to see a little bit of rain through the parts of the second half, but it is a gorgeous day. And cannot wait to see this game kick off.
Yeah, this one's going to be a fun one. This is going to be a matchup of, well, I mean, what we hope is two prolific offenses. It may be one of those games where whichever defense steps up first and best will be on the victorious side. But let's get into this a little bit more. And I think for BYU fans, one of the things that's so exciting about the matchup is after so many months of not having anything to compare it to, now BYU has played a game. And BYU looked